Hey guys, Mr. Milton here. Today we're going to look at factoring when a is not 1. At the end of this video, you should be able to factor a quadratic when a does not equal 1. Okay. So here, recall it says factor x squared plus 10x plus 16. Remember from last lesson, we were able to do that with the help of our x. Found two numbers that multiply to give us 16, added to give us 10. Those two numbers in this case. Or actually, before we go there, we knew last lesson that we're going to get x plus x. So two numbers that multiply to give us 16 and add to give us 10 are 8 and 2. Okay. So x plus 8 times x plus 2 should give us this quadratic. Why are we allowed to just put x and x in as the first terms? Well, it's the only way to multiply to get x squared. Okay, and so we're allowed to do that. Okay, how about this one? We have 6x squared plus 19x plus 10. Are we allowed to put x and x in as the first term of the binomial? In this case, no. Okay, because we need our first terms to multiply to get 6x squared instead of x squared. So we'll finish this problem in just a little bit. All right. When we have a quadratic whose a value is not 1, we have to approach it a little bit different. Okay, so here's our process. We're going to check for GCF. Because in all honesty, the problems are easier when a is 1. So if we can find the GCF and factor it out and get it back to 1, that'd be great. Okay, so we take out the GCF if there is 1, and then factor whatever is left inside the parentheses. If there's not 1, then you should factor using the Xbox method. When we use the Xbox method, we want to find numbers that multiply to give us a times c and add to give b. It's already there. B. Okay. Once we do that, we're going to place the terms in the box and then take the GCF out of each row and each column. Okay, this is a new step with our factoring. Okay, so let's walk through that, the problem we saw earlier. We have 6x squared plus 19x plus 10. Okay, here's how we're going to do this. In our x, we want two numbers that multiply to give us a times c, and at the same time add to give us b. So from the problem, a is 6, c is 10. 6 times 10, 60. Remember, ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, b is 19. So I'm going to find two numbers that multiply to give me 60 and at the same time add to give me 19. Okay. If you have trouble thinking of those, remember we said we could do their t-chart. I kind of have those numbers in my head already. 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15. 4 times 15 is 60, 4 plus 15 is 49. 4 and 15 work out for us here. Okay, so last time we might have just been able to say like x plus 4, x plus 15 at this point, but because a is not 1, we're going to have to use our box method. Okay, so in our box, we're doing this backwards, right? Because factoring is backwards and multiplying. We're going to start with our inside populated. We go first term, first box, last term, last box. In the middle here, we have 4x and 15x. Okay, and what this was is really a splitting this factor into these two terms, these two boxes. Okay. Now that we're there, we go through each row and each column, we take out the GCF. So what's the highest number that fits into 6 and 15? 3. That fits into x squared and x. Okay. 6x and 4x, 2x. 5x and 10, 5. 4x and 10, 2. As you go through, you should check your answers. Just make sure that when these numbers meet, that's their product in the box. Okay, 3 times. Yep. Okay. So here are our factors. 2x plus 5, 3x plus 2. All right, so let's go into some more examples here. So our first problem, we have 3x squared plus 12x minus 15. Okay, so a is not 1, makes it a longer problem. But we always want to check for GCF, because if there's a GCF, then we can avoid having to do the x box method. We could just use our x like we did previously. So here I see we have 3x squared, 12x, 15. These numbers are all multiples of 3. So 3 is a GCF here. I'm going to factor that out. I'm left with 3x squared plus 4x minus 5. Okay, no other common factors in here. 3 is out here. Great though, because a is 1. So I can just find two numbers that multiply to give me -5 and add to give me 4. So multiplies to give me a negative, adds to give me a positive. That means our signs are different and our larger sign's positive. So I'm going to say 5 and -1. Okay, so here I have 3 on the outside, x and x, and we know that because it's just x squared. A is 1, makes it easier. Plus 5 minus 1. Okay, and that's where using the GCF or looking for the GCF first helps us to make our problem a little bit faster. All right, number 2, we have 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. All right, there's no GCF between all of these terms, and so I have to start into my x. Remember that our x is a times c up here. In this case, a is 2, c is 2. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 4, and at the same time add to give us 5. Okay, so as I look at that, I'm thinking, okay, 2 times 2, that multiplies to give us 4, but adds to give us 4. But 4 times 1 multiplies to give us 4 and adds to give us 5. So that works out. So remember that those two values go in my box. So in my box, I put my first term from the problem, 2x squared, in the first box. My last term from the problem, 2, in the last box. And then these two numbers that I came up with, 4 and 1, 4x, 1x, in these other two boxes. Okay? And so now I go through each row and each column and take out the GCF. My GCF between x and 2x squared is just x. My GCF between 4x and 2 is 2. My GCF between 1x and 2 is 1. My GCF between 2x squared and 4x is 2x. Okay, as I go through, all those products should happen inside the box. They do. And so my answer is 2x plus 1 and x plus 2. Number 3, we have 6x squared minus 23x plus 7. Check for my GCF, but I have 7 there. It's a prime number. It's not approximate all these, so no luck for there. Have to do the X box method here. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 6 times 7, A times C, 42. And at the same time, add to give me -23. Now, multiplies give me a positive number, adds give me a negative number. That means our signs are the same, and they're both negative. Okay, and so I'm thinking of those numbers. You can take a second to think about them. Those numbers would be -21 and -2. Again, if you have any trouble thinking of those numbers, make the T-chart. Start with 1, divide the numbers all the way up, going until you repeat numbers, okay? But -21 and -2, multiplies give me +42, adds give me -23. So now I can make my box. In my box, I have first term, first box, which is 6x squared. Last term, last box, 7. And then these two terms that we came up with, -21x and -2x in the other two boxes. Coming through, taking out my GCF here, 2x, my GCF here, 7, my GCF here, 1, my GCF here, 3x. Okay, as we go through, we want to make sure that we have all of our products match up. And here's a rule for that. we never want our first terms to be negative. Okay, so I'm looking through here and I'm like, wait a second, this should be negative 21. Well, that means I need to make this 7 a negative 7. Okay, now negative 7 times 3x is negative 21. You'll see when I do that, I have an issue here because I want to make this 7 a negative 7 here. This should be, or sorry, this would be negative 7 if I did negative 7 times 1. I need this 7 to be positive. I can change that by switching this sign. Okay, and as I go through, I should make sure that all of my signs match. 2x times negative 1 is negative 2x. 2x times 3x is positive 6x squared. Negative 7 times 3x is negative 21x. Negative 7 times negative 1 is positive 7. So I have my products as 3x minus 1, 2x minus 7. All right, number 4, they give us a huge clue here because we see an x cubed. And you might be like, I don't know how to do anything with x cubed. You know? Well, x cubed is probably a sign that there's a GCF somewhere. Okay, and I'm looking, and all of these numbers are even, and all of these numbers have x. So I could factor out a 2x from each term here. So I factor out 2x and leave the rest of my factor inside. 2x cubed divided by 2x is x squared. Negative 12x squared divided by 2x is 6x. Negative 32x divided by 2x is negative 16. Really nice because now our a value is 1 and we can just use our x. We don't have to use the x box. Okay, so here I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 16, 1 times negative 16, and add to give me negative 6. Okay, so it multiplies to give me a negative number, so I know my signs are different. It adds to give me a negative number, so I know that my biggest number is negative. Okay, take a second, think about those numbers. Those numbers are negative 8 and positive 2. Okay. Now, as I write my answer out, because we're almost there, I know that I'm going to have 2x, and because a is 1, I have x times x. Okay, now I go through and I write my factors in. Minus 8 plus 2. Okay, so remember, always check for your GCF. Always, always, always. Saves you a lot of time. Number 5, we have 3x squared plus 10x minus 8. Looking here, no GCF between 3 and 10 and 8. They don't all have x's, so we're going straight to the x box then, looking for two numbers that multiply to give us a times c. In this case, it's 3 times 8. Two numbers that multiply to give us 24, and at the same time, add to give us 10. Or sorry, multiply to give us negative 24, because it's a negative 8. All right. So, multiplies to give us a negative means that our signs are different. Add to give us a positive number, that means our larger number is positive. So as I think about those numbers, again, there's some options here. I'll make the T-chart just so we can have some practice with it. Negative 24. Remember, I'll do 1, 24, 2, 12, 3, and 8, 4, and 6. The next thing I do is 6 and 4. I'm not going to write that out because now I'm going to go through my logic here is that, okay, I multiplied to get a negative number. That means my signs are different. And my b value is positive. That means my bigger number is positive. So I'm going to make all these smaller numbers negative and see which one comes out to give me 10. In this case, negative 2 plus 12 equals 10. Okay, and so these are my two terms, but I have to use the box now, right? Because a is not 1, so I can't just say x plus 12 and x minus 2. That doesn't work out. So in my box, I've got my first term in the first square, 3x squared. Last term in the last square, negative 8. And then the other two terms, 12x and negative 2x in the other two boxes. Doesn't matter which order we put those in. Okay, now we go through each row and each column and take out the GCF. So my GCF between 3x squared and negative 2x is just x. My GCF between 12x and 8 or negative 8 is 4. My GCF between negative 2x and negative 8, since they're both negative, I'm just going to take the negative out right now, negative 2. And my GCF between 3x squared and 12x is 3x. Again, we can go through, make sure that all these products match up and that we're getting the right signs as well inside these boxes. Okay, and we see that we do. So we get 3x minus 2 and x plus 4. Final problem here, we have 18x squared minus 12x minus 6. Okay, as we look through 18, 12, 6, hey, they all are factors of 6. Or 6 is a factor of all of them. Okay, and so we can take 6 out. So when we take 6 out, we have 3x squared minus 2x minus 1. Look at that. Even though we took out a GCF, we still have a as 3. So we took out a GCF, but we still have to use the Xbox method. Okay, so our Xbox method, we're still dealing with just inside this parentheses now, 2 numbers that multiply to give us 3 times negative 1, negative 3, and add to give us negative 2. Okay, signs are different. Bigger numbers negative, negative 3, positive 1. Again, we have to go to the box because a is not 1. And in our box, we have our first term, which is 3x squared, our last term, which is negative 1, and these other 2 terms, negative 3x, 1x, in the other 2 boxes. Okay, so going through each column, taking out our GCF, GCF here would be x, GCF here, since they're both negative, I'm going to go ahead and take out this negative 1. Between these two, it's 1. Between these two, it's 3x. Remember, our first term is never going to be negative. Go through, make sure that all of our products match up with what's inside the box, and they do. Good for us. And so we can write our answer. Our answer, do not forget the GCF. It's here. 6 times our 2 factors, 3x plus 1 and x minus 1. Okay, so that is factoring our quadratics when a is not 1. See ya.